everyone. This is the fourth in the series of the Chiyuv, and today we're going to deal with a very simple question. Can one individual in the shul say, I don't want that Chiyuv to daven? So, in order to deal with this question, let's take a step back and make a common sense statement, but I'll quote it from the Or Zarua, the famous Or Zarua, Rav Yitzchak from Vienna. His years 1180 to 1250. He was a Talmud of the Rav Yah. He was the Rebbe of the Maharami Rutenberg. And he says in the name of Rav Yehuda HaChassid, Shetzarich Shliach Tzibur Liod Ahuv LaTzibur. The Chazzan should be someone that's loved by the congregation. And it makes sense because he is the messenger of the congregation, so he should be loved by the people that he is talking on their behalf. And therefore, if you want to make a permanent Chazzan, be it the Chazzan of the congregation every Shabbos, or be it this Chiyuv, it should be with everyone agreeing. And therefore, he goes on to say that if indeed you want to be this kind of Chazzan, tzarich shliach tzibur la'asok sheyavu. The Chazzan should go out of his way that he should be loved by the people. How does he do that? La'achnif latzibur la'avir amidotav. To give them compliments from time to time, to talk to the people, to say you have a nice tie on, you look great, and not to mention la'avir amidotav, to be easygoing. His son, the Maharach Or Zarua, then unfortunately, when he was born, his father died. His real name was not Maharach, Rav Chaim Eliezer, the son of Rav Yitzchak Or Zarua. He wrote a responsum in which indeed he says, Gadol HaShalom, Shu Kli HaMachzik Kol HaBrachot, V'Gnayu HaMachloket Shu Machriv Et HaGufim VaMemonot. Indeed, in any shul, peace is one of the most important things. It brings all the rest of the brachos down. That's probably why Birkas Kohanim ends with that statement. And on the other hand, when you have machlokes, it goes ahead and leads to destruction, u'mesalek shechina miYisrael, and usually, unfortunately, makes the holy presence of God leave. And if that's the case, there's no one that guards the congregation. With that in mind, can one individual indeed come and say, I don't like that Chazzan, he shouldn't be Chazzan? The Shulchan Aruch says, yes. Afilu yachid yachol ha'kev lomar, eni rotzeh sheploni yeh Chazzan. Im lo shekvar haskim alav mitchila. So unless this Chazzan has a contract, and everyone agreed to it with a vote, then indeed, even an individual can come along and say, I don't want this Chazzan. The Mishnah Berurah brings a beautiful reason for this. He says, our davening is in place of the korbanot. And just like when we brought Korban Tamid Shel Boker, Korban Tamid Shel Ben HaArbayim, it was with the acquiescence of all the Jewish people. Namely, they all stood firmly behind the Kohanim that brought the Korbanot, the Levim that sang the Shir Shel Yom, the Yisraelim that davened in the Ma'amadot, that the Korban should be accepted by God. So too in Shul, the Chazzan should be someone accepted by the entire congregation. If not, he's not a Shliach Tzibur, not a messenger of the congregation, and should not be Chazzan. Of course, within reason. And that's probably why the Mahari Weil, Yaakov Weil, known as the Mahario, around 1456 he was born, lived in Germany, comes along and says, the name of the Maharach Or Zarua, that if an individual wants to say, I don't want this Chazzan, it has to be with a reason, and not Shayachid Mocheh Afilu B'lo Tam, because that's terrible. And at the end of the day, he says that if there is a good reason, come before the Tuvei Ha'ir, come before the elected body, be it the ritual committee, the Gabayim, and tell them, this is the reason I don't like the Chazzan. And usually if the reason is good, they should and will listen to you. So ultimately, that's what the Ramah paskins. V'dafka sheyeh oto yachid ta'amagun al pi Tuvei Ha'ir. That indeed, if he comes with a good reason why he doesn't want that Chazzan, the Tuvei Ha'ir should acknowledge it and should advise it. But stam to say, I don't like the way he dresses, that's not a good reason. However, even though this is the psak of the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah, that the individual can say, I don't want this Chazzan, there is an opposing view, and that is the Maharach Or Zarua, that he thinks it's terrible that there is a custom that even an individual comes along and says, I don't want this Chazzan. But rather we should go by majority rules. And therefore he says that in general, all year long, if the majority wants the Chazzan, we don't really care what one individual or two individuals or any minority says. But he does say that for Yomim Noraim, it has to be a Chazzan that everyone accepts. The third point of view is the Mishnah Berurah. He doesn't make a difference between Yomim Noraim and the rest of the year, but in general, he agrees with this. And he says that unfortunately, in our generation, there is many people that like to cause machlokas in shul below tam v'reach, with no reason and with no good scent to it. V'kanvanatam shelo l'shem shamayim, and they don't really do it for the right intentions. Number two, practically, he says, if you had to ask each and every individual, do you want this chazan, you'll never get anything off the ground. And therefore, he says, you go by the majority of those that pay membership, rope porei hamas. Not to mention, he says that the minhag today, namely in Radin, when he lived in the 20th century, is to go by the Zayin Tuvei Ha'ir, the elected body, or Echad Ibrahim min HaKahal, namely the Gabbai. And therefore, we have basically three opinions. The main opinion, Shulchan Aruch Ramah, is that indeed even one person can say, I don't want that chazan, as long as he has a good reason. The second opinion is majority, not one individual, except for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. And the third opinion is all year long. But all year long, you usually go by majority of those that pay membership or the elected body that knows what the membership wants. At the end of the day, I really think this whole machlokas is really impractical. Because if one individual with a good reason comes along and says that chazan's no good, he's usually not alone. And if indeed it's one individual that comes with no good reason, then he is alone. If a guy comes and says, I don't want this chazan because he davens too slow or he davens too fast, he's usually not alone. There will be others that will say the same thing. Maybe they didn't vocally express it, but maybe at home, behind closed doors, they are complaining. And therefore, I think that the elected body, namely the ritual committee, the gabbai, whoever it might be, has to be attentive even to the individual for two reasons. Number one, that is the psak of the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah, and we usually follow them. And number two, even if you want to go by majority or whatnot, the other opinions, usually this individual is not alone. And therefore, if there is a chazan and he's causing controversy, I think we should indeed take it to heart and go back to the words that we began this podcast with, the beautiful words of the Or Zarua. Tzarich shliach tzibor lihiyot ahuv latzibor. The messenger of the congregation, what we call a chazan, should be loved by the congregation that he represents. And if it's someone that one individual says, I don't like him, and he has a good reason, maybe you should rethink it.
Hashem Melech Hu, v'lemedai tzayru semech hu lishma.